The twin suns of Ilaria set behind rolling emerald hills, casting long shadows across the colony's sprawl of domed habitats and terraced farms. The air was thick with the scent of blooming Christoflora, the gentle hum of wind turbines, and the faint chatter of families settling in for the evening. For years the colony had thrived, far from Earth's crowded core, a beacon of human tenacity on the edge of known space. Captain Mara Voss stood on the balcony of the colony's command center, eyes fixed on the horizon. Her jaw was clenched, the weight of responsibility heavy on her shoulders. The settlement was peaceful, yes, but on the galactic scale, peace was a fragile illusion. Mara had seen what the universe could do to those who let their guard down. Then, without warning, the silence shattered. First came the ripple in the sky, a flicker of light, barely perceptible, like a star twinkling out of sync. Mara's gut clenched. She snapped orders to her comm officers, but before the message could even be sent, the heavens erupted. A pulse of energy surged downward, striking the largest dome in the colony. The shield shimmered, strained, then exploded in a violent cascade of light and fire. The air filled with screams, alarms blared, and chaos ignited like wildfire. The orbital bombardment was merciless. Dozens of heavy plasma bursts rained down, carving scars into the planet's surface. Green fields turned black. Water reservoirs boiled and entire neighborhoods vanished beneath firestorms. The Vrixar ascendancy had arrived and they were angry. Mara's heart pounded as she shouted commands. Emergency shelters were activated, medics dispatched, and security teams scrambled to locate survivors. The colony's defense turrets, old and barely operational, sputtered to life and fired futile volleys at unseen attackers high above. "This isn't a raid," Mara growled into her comm. "It's a declaration of war." Her second-in-command, Lieutenant Soren Cade, appeared behind her, eyes wide. "Captain, their fleet," Mara cut him off. "Where's the fleet now?" Soren pointed skyward. A massive Vrixar war cruiser, hung in the twilight, scarred but functional. Its sleek, jagged hull pulsed with ominous blue energy. Smaller fighter drones darted around it like angry hornets. "Looks like they left one behind," Mara said bitterly. To gloat or to finish the job. The colony systems flickered as power grids failed. Comms went silent and emergency protocols kicked in. Mara grabbed a handheld scanner and jogged toward the operations room. Her mind raced. This was no mere raid. The Vrixar intended to break humanity's foothold here. Inside the operations center, holographic displays flickered to life, showing damage reports and casualty numbers. Over 1,000 souls were missing or dead, but many more survived, hidden in shelters, caves, or scattered across the wilderness. "We need to evacuate non-combatants to the underground bunkers," Mara ordered. "Scavenging teams, gear up. We're going to take this fight to them." A sudden tremor shook the facility and Mara stumbled. The entire structure groaned as secondary explosions rocked the colony's outskirts. Fire alarms screamed. "Captain!" Soren shouted. "We've got incoming boarding pods." Mara's eyes narrowed. The Vrixar weren't just bombing, they intended to land troops and crush resistance. She activated the colony's emergency defenses. Automated turrets deployed, from hidden bunkers, launching flares and volleys of high-velocity rounds. A fierce firefight erupted in the valley below, where the first Vrixar Marines hit the ground. Despite their surprise, the colonists fought back. Farmers grabbed hunting rifles. Engineers wielded makeshift weapons. Scientists hacked environmental controls to collapse tunnels and create deadly traps. Ilaria's settlers weren't trained soldiers, but they were fighting for their home, their families, their survival. Mara directed every move with calm precision. Her military instincts surged forward, honed from years in Earth's fleet. She coordinated sniper teams, called in air support from colony drones, and ordered medical units to triage the wounded. Yet the Vrixar advanced relentlessly, their armor nearly impenetrable, their tactics ruthless. "Captain," Soren said, breathless, "we can't hold them forever." Mara's gaze hardened. "We won't need forever, just enough time." Suddenly the colony's main power grid exploded, plunging them into darkness. Emergency lighting flickered on, casting eerie shadows across the panic-stricken faces of survivors. We're on our own now, Mara whispered. Hours passed like days. The bombardment ceased, but the war had only begun. Mara surveyed the battlefield from the ridge above the ruined city, watching as survivors regrouped and reclaimed their ground. The Vrixar warcruiser remained, a grim sentinel, broadcasting, a silent threat. Mara clenched her fists. They think this colony is finished, she said to herself. They're wrong. The galaxy had made its deadliest mistake. They attacked a human colony, and the humans lived. The dawn on Ilaria was cold and gray, a cruel mirror of the blood-soaked night before. The colony lay in ruins, homes reduced to skeletal frames, fields charred into barren ash and the air heavy with smoke and sorrow. But amid the wreckage, something stubbornly flickered to life. Defiance. Captain Mara Voss moved like a shadow through the shattered streets, her once pristine uniform now dirt-streaked and torn. Around her, survivors, farmers, scientists, engineers, dragged, wounded friends and strangers alike toward makeshift triage stations. The colony's usual hum of industry had been replaced by urgent shouts, and the scrape of scavenged tools turned into weapons. Listen up, Mara called, her voice cutting through the chaos like a blade. They thought we were finished. They thought we'd break. They were wrong. The crowd paused, faces exhausted, but burning with a fierce spark. Mara's presence was a lifeline, proof that the colony still had a heart, still had a fight. Behind her, Lieutenant Soren Cade approached, grim-faced but determined. We've salvaged some Vrixar tech from the wreckage. Nothing major, but enough to make some modifications. Mara nodded. Good. Start converting those mining drones into assault units. We'll need every edge. The reality was brutal. The colony's defenses were decimated, their communications crippled, and reinforcements from Earth uncertain at best. Yet, it was this desperation that forged a new weapon, the ingenuity of survivors who had no choice but to adapt. Mara's mind raced. The Vrixar warcruiser still orbited overhead, its massive guns silent for now, but threatening. She knew it was only a matter of time before they struck again. She had to prepare for a war of attrition, of hit and run, strikes that would grind down the invaders. We need intelligence, she said. Soren, organize reconnaissance teams. Find their patrol routes, weaknesses, anything. Soren saluted sharply. Yes, Captain. The colony's scientists, once devoted to agriculture and habitat maintenance, now worked feverishly in underground labs. They repurposed atmospheric processors to generate smokescreens and EMP bursts. Engineers rewired old farming machinery into mobile weapons platforms. Even the children learned to identify and disable Vrixar drones. But the greatest weapon was something no machine could provide: the human spirit. Mara visited a temporary shelter where survivors huddled around flickering lights. She saw grief and fear etched deep on their faces, but also a quiet determination. One man, a grizzled farmer named Tarek, caught her eye. You think we can beat them? Mara looked him straight in the eye. We don't have to beat them outright. We only have to survive long enough to make them regret every shot. That night, Mara convened a council in the colony's ruined command center. Around the battered holographic table sat leaders from every community: scientists, farmers, medics, and former military. We fight differently now, Mara began. No more front lines. We strike like ghosts, hit, vanish, and let them chase shadows. A young engineer, Lila, spoke up. We've modified the drones to mimic Vrixar signatures. We can create decoys, confuse their sensors. Good, Mara replied. Psychological warfare will be our ally. Make them question every step. The council agreed on a plan to sabotage the Vrixar's supplies and communications, turning their own technology against them. Mara knew that to the Ascendancy, humans were a nuisance to be erased. Now, they would become a nightmare. Over the next days, Mara led strike teams into the thick jungles that had once been peaceful parks. The dense foliage became a battleground of traps and ambushes. Using silent crossbows, improvised explosives, and hacked drones, the colonists harassed the Vrixar patrols relentlessly. One night, during a particularly daring raid on an ammo depot, Mara faced the reality of war's toll. A close friend and medic, Jorah, was gravely wounded. Mara cradled her, refusing to let despair take hold. "Keep fighting," Jorah gasped. "For the colony. For us all." Mara nodded, her jaw clenched. "We will. I swear it." Meanwhile, the Vrixar warcruiser launched a probing strike force, armored walkers stomping through the outer farms. The colonists' traps slowed them, but heavy losses mounted. Mara knew the invaders underestimated human resilience and ruthlessness. Back, in orbit, the crippled war cruiser broadcast a chilling message across the colony's hacked comm channels, a taunt and a threat. The Vrixar commander, Skeldravian, declared the colony's destruction imminent, but Mara wasn't listening. Instead, she stared up at the stars, a cold fire burning in her eyes. She whispered, "They chose to fight us. Now they will learn what it means to face humanity's wrath." The survivors of Ilaria weren't just rebuilding, they were becoming a force, a spark of rebellion that would blaze through the galaxy. And the Vrixar's deadliest mistake was just beginning to reveal itself. The jungle shadows of Ilaria whispered secrets to those who listened, and Mara Voss had become a master of their language. Under the thick canopy, the colony's guerrilla, fighters moved like ghosts, slipping through underbrush and ruins alike. They were no longer merely defending, they were hunting. Every step was calculated, every ambush precise. The Vrixar patrols had begun to fear the silent assassins in their midst. At the heart of this transformation was a discovery that shifted the entire balance of the war. A cache of Vrixar combat drones left abandoned after the initial bombardment. Their sleek black hulls and buzzing servos had been turned off, lifeless, but not for long. Lila, the colony's brilliant engineer, had spent sleepless nights tinkering and reverse engineering the drone's AI. "They're impressive machines," she told Mara, eyes gleaming with excitement. "But their programming is rigid. They respond only to direct commands and basic threat assessment. We can rewrite that." Mara listened carefully as Lila laid out the plan. By uploading new directives, the drones could become unpredictable hunters, attacking Vrixar forces with the cunning and adaptability of human fighters. What the Vrixar thought were cold, mechanical weapons could now mimic human instinct and creativity. "This changes everything," Mara said, her voice low. "We'll turn their own technology against them. The enemy won't know whether they're facing humans, Geed, or ghosts." The first test came swiftly. Under cover of darkness, Mara's team launched the hacked drones in a surprise attack on a Vrixar supply convoy moving through a narrow mountain pass. The drones darted ahead, weaving between trees, firing in erratic patterns that Vrixar tactical AI couldn't predict. The result was devastating. The convoy was ambushed and destroyed, its remnants left smoldering on the rocky ground. Vrixar survivors barely escaped with their lives, their confidence shaken. Word spread fast through the colony. The humans weren't just fighting, they were evolving. A weapon born from their enemy's arrogance now cut deeply into the Ascendancy's forces. But the Vrixar commander, Skeldravian, was no fool. He ordered immediate countermeasures. Electronic warfare teams scrambled to jam drone signals. Sensor arrays were recalibrated to detect non-standard AI patterns, and patrol tactics were revamped to expect human cunning. Despite these precautions, Mara's militia continued their relentless campaign. Strike teams hit Vrixar patrols, supply, caches, and communication hubs, then vanished before reinforcements arrived. Mara's forces leveraged the planet's hostile environment, dense forests, treacherous swamps, and jagged cliffs, to their advantage. One of Mara's sharpest lieutenants, Dax Rel, a former smuggler turned scout, reported a chilling discovery. "The Vrixar are starting to act paranoid," he said during a briefing. "They're executing soldiers accused of cowardice or treason. Morale is breaking." Mara nodded grimly. "Good. Fear is a weapon we can wield." But victory came at a cost. The colony's casualty list grew longer with every firefight, and the psychological toll weighed heavily. Mara herself barely slept, haunted by the faces of those lost, and by the ruthless decisions she was forced to make. During one operation, Mara's squad was ambushed near an abandoned mining outpost. The firefight was fierce, and when the smoke cleared, several of her closest comrades lay dead. Mara barely escaped, wounded but alive. Back in the infirmary, she stared at the stars visible through the cracked dome. "They don't understand us," she whispered. "They think we're weak because we're not soldiers, but we're something else." In the shadows, an unexpected ally emerged. Dr. Kira Vance, a xenobiologist, uncovered an ancient Terran psychological warfare manual, old Earth military doctrine long thought obsolete. It contained tactics for breaking enemy morale, sowing confusion, and turning fear against foes. Mara ordered the manual's strategies adapted to the colony's needs. Soon, propaganda broadcasts began infiltrating Rixar channels, distorted voices warning of phantom human armies, fake transmissions of reinforcements en route, and messages taunting the invaders' failures. The psychological pressure mounted. Rixar patrols reported phantom footsteps in the night, ghost drones striking with impossible speed, and whispered rumors of a human force multiplying beyond comprehension. Mara watched as the Rixar's confidence crumbled, one fractured radio call at a time. Yet, even as the war shifted, Mara knew the Rixar still held one terrible advantage: their warcruiser, looming like a dark god above Alaria. Its cannons could still reduce whole districts to ash in moments. "We need to cripple that ship," Mara said to Soren Cade during a late-night strategy session. "If it fires again, it could end this war in minutes." Soren nodded. "I've got a team ready to infiltrate the ship's orbiting maintenance platforms. We'll plant charges and hack their systems." Mara's eyes burned with fierce resolve. "Then that's our next move." The colonists' evolution was underway, from survivors to warriors, from prey to predators, and the galaxy would soon learn the true meaning of the deadliest mistake: attacking a human colony and living to regret. How the victory on Alaria had not gone unnoticed. Far beyond the fractured skies of the colony, the communications hack Mara's team unleashed rippled across the galactic net. The Vrixar's boastful broadcasts were intercepted and overwritten by human defiance. A clear message: Alaria still stood, and humanity was fighting back. Back on Earth, the news sent shockwaves through the halls of power. Some officials clamored for intervention, fearful that the loss of Alaria would mark a domino effect across human colonies. Others cautioned restraint, calling the distant frontier too costly to defend, a burden too great to bear. Amidst the political wrangling, Mara's voice remained resolute, broadcast clandestinely to every listening outpost. They believed, "We would fall. We did not. We will rise. And we will fight for every inch of our home." Meanwhile, in the shadows of the Vrixar capital, the High Council seethed with rage. The loss of Alaria was more than a military setback. It was an affront to their supremacy. Commander Skeldravian's failure was a stain that could not be cleansed by mere words. "The humans are not just survivors," one counselor hissed. "They are a contagion spreading defiance and disorder." In response, the council decreed a brutal edict: total annihilation. No prisoners, no mercy. The colony was to be wiped from existence, not as a warning, but as an example. Back on Alaria, the colonists prepared for the storm they knew was coming. Mara convened her leaders in the underground war room, walls lined with salvaged Vrixar, tech humming faintly in the darkness. The air was thick with tension. "The council has declared us enemies of the Ascendancy," Mara said, voice cold and steady. "They want us dead. All of us." Her second-in-command, Soren, looked grim. "They're mobilizing fleets. Reinforcements will arrive within weeks." Mara's gaze swept the room. "Then we have weeks to prepare." The colony shifted into a wartime footing. Factories churned out weapons and armor. Scientists worked to enhance drone AI and develop new countermeasures. Engineers wired the terrain with hidden explosives and traps, turning forests into killing fields. But more than that, Mara knew they needed allies. The galaxy was vast, and not every species bowed to Vrixar dominance. Using stolen Vrixar communication relays, Mara broadcast a call for help, an encrypted message sent through channels ignored by most, but heard by a few brave souls who opposed. The Ascendancy alien species who had suffered under Vrixar oppression quietly began to respond, sending supplies, intelligence, and even fighters. The colony was no longer isolated, yet the greatest weapon Mara wielded was the human mind itself. She ordered the initiation of a new program, the Mara Protocols, a doctrine born from hard lessons, blending rapid adaptation, ruthless pragmatism, and relentless innovation. Every human settlement was to become a fortress, every citizen a warrior in their own right. We don't just survive, Mara told her people. We evolve, we outthink, we outfight. The first wave of the new tactics was tested when a Vrixar fleet attempted a stealth landing on Alaria's eastern coast. Under cover of swirling acid fog, the enemy descended in dropships, silent and deadly. But the colonists were ready. Automated, mines detonated beneath the landing zones while drone swarms harried the dropships mid-air. Guerrilla fighters struck from hidden positions, using guerrilla warfare perfected over months. The battle was fierce and chaotic, but the humans triumphed, destroying enemy troops and forcing a hasty retreat. The cost was high, but the message was clear. Alaria was no longer prey. Amid the firefight, Mara received unexpected intelligence. A rogue Vrixar faction opposed the Council's harsh edict, fearing that total annihilation would spark a galaxy-wide rebellion. They offered secret negotiations, an uneasy, dangerous opening. Mara considered the offer carefully. Trusting the Vrixar was a risk, but so was isolation. She sent a cautious envoy to meet the dissidents in the shadow of a ruined space station, far from Alaria's skies. The meeting was tense, with words weighed as heavily as weapons. The dissidents revealed chilling truths. The Vrixar Council's grip was weakening, and many feared the human fight on Alaria was a spark that could ignite a wider war. We do not want endless bloodshed, the dissident leader said. But the Council will not back down. Mara's reply was measured but unyielding. Neither will we. Our fight is for survival, and for the right to exist. The envoy returned with mixed news. No peace yet, but cracks within the Vrixar's ranks. Back on Alaria, Mara stood beneath the starlit sky, her mind heavy with the burden of command. The galaxy was watching, and the war was far from over. But one truth burned clear. Humanity had risen from ashes reshaped by fire and loss. They were no longer victims. They were predators, and their claws were just beginning to sharpen. The colony's once tranquil nights were gone, replaced by a restless tension that hummed beneath every breath. Alaria's survivors no longer whispered of peace or rebuilding. They spoke of resistance, rebellion, and retribution. Captain Mara Voss walked through the winding tunnels beneath the shattered city, where the colony's heart now pulsed with raw determination. Soldiers, scavengers, and scientists gathered side by side, their faces marked by exhaustion, scars, and unyielding resolve. Her steps brought her to a dimly lit command hub, where Lieutenant Soren Cade studied a holographic star map. Red blips marked Vrixar fleets converging from multiple systems, reinforcements swelling like a tide ready to crash. We don't have long, Soren said, eyes flicking to Mara. The Council's patience is gone. They're sending a full-scale assault. Mara's jaw tightened. Then we'll give them a fight that breaks their will. Across the colony, whispers of hope emerged from unlikely places. An underground network of sympathizers, Vrixar dissidents, exiled aliens and humans alike, worked to undermine the ascendancy from within. Secret caches of weapons and supplies appeared in hidden locations, and coded messages flitted through the darkness like sparks in a wildfire. Mara called this new movement the Shadow Rebellion. It was a fragile alliance born from desperation and the shared hunger for freedom. But unity was hard won. At a tense meeting in the colony's subterranean council chamber, representatives from each faction argued over tactics and trust. Your human defiance inspires us, said Zara, a lithe Vrixar exile with sharp eyes and sharper words. But we cannot risk open conflict without support. Then what do you suggest? Mara challenged. Waiting for reinforcements that may never come? From the back, a grizzled miner named Joran slammed his fist on the table. We fight. Now. Every day we wait, they tighten their grip. Voices rose, heated and raw. Mara raised her hand, silencing the room. We fight smarter. The enemy is ruthless. We must be ruthless too. She laid out a bold plan, coordinated sabotage across multiple Vrixar supply routes, striking deep into enemy territory to cripple their war effort before the main assault. The room nodded in cautious agreement. But beneath the surface, doubts simmered. Trust was a fragile thread. Meanwhile, personal battles raged behind the scenes. Mara's relationship with Soren had grown complicated. The war forced decisions that weighed heavily on both, questions of sacrifice, leadership, and what it truly meant to survive. One evening, beneath flickering emergency lights, Mara confronted him in the command center. We can't keep losing. People, she said quietly. Every life matters. Soren's eyes were tired but resolute. Every life is a risk. But if we don't fight, none of us will live. Their argument ended in silence, two leaders caught between hope and harsh reality. As sabotage teams prepared for their missions, the colony's medics struggled with dwindling supplies and growing numbers of wounded. Among them was Jorah, the medic Mara had saved weeks before. She had become a symbol of resilience, tending the injured with fierce determination despite her own pain. When a bombing raid struck a nearby shelter, Jorah was caught in the blast. Mara rushed to her side, her heart breaking as she watched the woman she relied on slip into unconsciousness. We can't lose her, Mara whispered, clutching Jorah's hand. The attack was a brutal reminder. The Vrixar's cruelty knew no bounds. Amidst the turmoil, a new voice rose from the ranks. A young hacker named Kian who had hacked into Vrixar communications, unearthing secrets that could shift the war's balance. Kian's discovery was shocking. The Vrixar Council planned to unleash a secret weapon, something powerful enough to destroy the entire colony in a single strike. Mara's mind raced. The information demanded immediate action. She summoned a covert strike team, tasking them with infiltrating the weapons facility, a heavily fortified station orbiting Alaria. The mission was perilous, requiring stealth, precision, and nerves of steel. As the strike team prepared, Mara addressed the colony. Her voice was steady but fierce. This war is far from over, she told them. But we fight for every breath, every heartbeat. We fight because we refuse to be erased. The colony braced for the coming storm, and as the shadows deepened, so did the human resolve to rise. The cold vacuum of space stretched endlessly around the derelict station orbiting Alaria. Its black hull, scarred by centuries of neglect, hid a deadly secret, the Ascendancy's secret weapon, a device capable of wiping the entire colony from existence in minutes. Captain Mara Voss stared out of the shuttle viewport as her strike team prepared for deployment. The tension in the cramped cabin was thick. Every face reflected a mix of determination and fear. This mission will decide our future, Mara said, voice calm but heavy with weight. We succeed, or we perish. The UA hatch hissed open. Mara led her squad into the shadows of the station's decaying corridors, their boots muffled against the metal grating. Every step echoed a whisper of hope and peril. The station's corridors were labyrinthine, a twisting maze of abandoned control rooms, maintenance bays, and cold, silent machinery. The humans moved cautiously, scanning for patrols, cameras, and automated defenses. Kian, the young hacker, interfaced with a terminal, fingers flying across an ancient keyboard. I'm in, he whispered. But the security systems are tight. I'll need time. Mara nodded. Cover him. Suddenly, alarms blared, a sharp, discordant wail breaking the eerie silence. Compromised, Kian yelled. They're onto us. The team scrambled into defensive positions as Vrixar security drones emerged from hidden compartments, their metallic limbs clicking menacingly. Gunfire erupted, red laser blasts piercing the gloom. Mara fired her rifle with deadly precision, leading the fight forward. The drones moved fast, but the humans were faster, using every inch of the station's maze to their advantage. As the firefight raged, Kian worked frantically to breach the weapon's core systems. "Almost there," he muttered, sweat beading his brow. Mara took a moment to catch her breath and radio back to the colony. "This is Voss. We're engaged. Initiate diversion protocols immediately." Across Ilaria, sudden explosions rocked. Vrixar installations as sabotage teams ignited fires and chaos. The colony was a living web of resistance. Back on the station, Kian's screen blinked green. "Got it. Initiating shutdown sequence now." A low hum began to build, growing steadily. Into a roar, the secret weapon powered down, its deadly glow fading into darkness. But victory was short-lived. The station shuddered violently. The Vrixar commander Skel Dravian had ordered self-destruct, a final act of spite. Mara's team raced back, toward their shuttle, dodging collapsing beams and bursts of flame. The corridors trembled as explosions ripped through the hull. With seconds to spare, they blasted out into space, the station detonating behind them in a brilliant flare. The destruction lit the void like a dying star. Back on Ilaria, the colony cheered, news of the mission's success spreading like wildfire. The secret weapon was gone, and with it the immediate threat of total annihilation. But Mara knew the war was far from over. The Vrixar would retaliate with greater fury, driven by rage and desperation. She stood on the colony's observation deck, staring at the dark horizon, mind racing with plans and contingencies. "We've won a battle," she whispered, "but the storm is only gathering." The ruins of Ilaria bore the scars of countless battles, yet beneath the battered surface something new was growing. Hope. Captain Mara Voss stood amid the bustling command center, surrounded by a holographic map dotted with blinking markers. Red icons, the Vrixar, still swarmed the system, but the tide was shifting. The guerrilla strikes, the sabotage, the drone ambushes, they were beginning to cripple the Ascendancy's grip. Intel confirms that several key Vrixar commanders have been neutralized or defected, reported Lieutenant Soren Cade. His expression, once grim, now held a flicker of optimism. "Their forces are fracturing," Mara nodded, eyes sharp. "We must exploit this division. If we can push the Vrixar into internal conflict, we buy ourselves time, maybe even a chance at peace." Across the galaxy, the message of resistance spread like wildfire. Alien factions long oppressed by the Vrixar reached out, pledging fighters, ships, and resources. The fragile coalition Mara had nurtured was growing stronger, yet the Ascendancy was not defeated. New fleets assembled in distant star systems, their commanders promising retribution. In the shadows, however, whispers of rebellion reached Mara's ears. A powerful Vrixar warlord named Threxar, who opposed the Council's brutal policies. He offered an alliance, but his motives were murky. Mara debated the risk. Trust was a luxury scarce in war. Still, the colony was running low on supplies, and new enemies loomed on the horizon. She authorized cautious communication. A clandestine meeting was arranged on a neutral moon, its barren surface scarred by ancient conflicts. Mara and Soren traveled under heavy guard, nerves taut. Threxar emerged from the shadows, his towering form covered in battle-worn armor. His voice was gravelly but persuasive. "The Council's vision will doom us all," he said. "Their reign is ending. Join me, and together we can overthrow them." Mara studied him carefully. "Why should we believe you?" "Because I have lost everything to their greed," Threxar replied, "and because I see in you the spark that can ignite a new future." After hours of tense negotiation, an uneasy alliance was forged. Threxar pledged his warriors to Mara's cause, and in return, humanity would support his bid for power within the Vrixar ranks. Back on Ilaria, preparations accelerated. The combined forces drilled relentlessly, integrating alien technology and new tactics. Scientists unveiled enhanced drones equipped with adaptive camouflage and advanced weaponry. Engineers fortified defenses, transforming the colony into an impregnable fortress. But the cost weighed heavily. Every victory demanded sacrifices, homes reduced to rubble, lives shattered, friendships tested. Mara found herself haunted by the faces of those lost, their memory fueling her determination. Then came the news. The Ascendancy's flagship, the dreadnought Eclipse, was en route to Alaria, carrying reinforcements and a devastating weapon rumored to rival the destroyed station. The final battle loomed. Mara gathered her commanders in the war room. This fight will decide the fate of not just Alaria, but the entire galaxy. We stand as the last beacon of hope. Soren's voice was steady. We've turned the tide before, we can do it again. Threxar's forces arrived at the outskirts of the colony, their presence a formidable reminder that the enemy's divisions could become humanity's greatest strength. As the fleets clashed above Alaria, the ground forces prepared to repel an invasion like none before. Mara stood on the observation deck once more, her gaze fixed on the swirling chaos in the stars. For the first time in months, she allowed herself a moment of quiet. The galaxy was watching and humanity was ready. The deadliest mistake, their survival, was about to become legend. The night sky above Alaria burned with the fury of war. The dreadnought Eclipse loomed like a black star, its cannons glowing ominously as it unleashed torrents of plasma fire against the colony's defenses. Explosions rocked the ground as Mara's forces scrambled to hold their lines, shields flickering under the relentless assault. Mara stood at the command hub, voice calm but fierce as she coordinated the desperate defense. Deploy drone swarms to the upper atmosphere. Target their weapon arrays. Soren, coordinate with Threxar's fleet for a pincer strike. We need to cripple Eclipse before it rains destruction. The battle above was chaos. Starships twisting and diving, laser beams cutting through void and flame. Threxar's Vrixar rebels fought with brutal precision, tearing into the Council's forces from within. On the ground, Mara's militia engaged wave after wave of infantry, their determination unbreakable. Hidden turrets opened fire, ambush, teams struck from the shadows, and the colony's rugged terrain swallowed enemies whole. In the heart of the war room, Kian's fingers danced over consoles, hacking enemy communications and sowing confusion. I'm jamming their coordination signals, he reported breathlessly. They're blind. The tide began to turn, but victory came at a cost. During a critical push to seize control of a weapons relay, Soren was struck by an enemy sniper's shot. Mara found him bleeding in the rubble, his life hanging by a thread. Stay with me, she urged, cradling his head. You're not leaving me now. Soren smiled weakly. You'll finish this fight, for all of us. Tears blurred Mara's vision, but she steeled herself. I swear it. Above, Eclipse's massive hull groaned as Threxar's fleet closed in, their combined firepower ripping through its shields. Mara's drone swarms targeted its weapon batteries, reducing their fire rate to a crawl. Seizing the moment, Mara ordered the final assault. A strike team would board the crippled dreadnought and disable its core reactors, ending the threat once and for all. Mara led the boarding party, her heart pounding as they breached the enemy vessel. The corridors were a nightmare, twisted metal, sparks flying, wounded soldiers moaning in the dark. The Ascendancy's fanatical defenders fought fiercely, but Mara's team pressed forward with relentless determination. At the core chamber, Mara planted the charges, hands steady despite the chaos. Get clear, she ordered, retreating with the others. The explosion ripped through the ship, flames engulfing the dreadnought's interior as the crew scrambled to escape. Outside, the Eclipse shuddered and broke apart, its fiery carcass tumbling into the void. Cheers erupted from the colony and rebel fleets. But the victory was bittersweet. Soren's body was laid to rest beneath Alaria's broken skies. Mara spoke at his memorial, her voice steady despite the grief. He fought for all of us, she said. His sacrifice is a beacon. We will honor it by never giving up. The Vrixar Council, fractured and leaderless, crumbled under internal rebellion. Threxar seized power, vowing a new era of peace and cooperation. Mara's voice echoed across the stars in a final broadcast. The galaxy has learned a truth we never asked to prove, that humanity will not be conquered, will not be broken. We are survivors, warriors, and builders. Our legacy is fire forged in battle, and a future shaped by our courage. Alaria began to rebuild, its people bound not just by survival, but by hope. The deadliest mistake, the decision to attack a human colony, had unleashed a force that reshaped the galaxy, and humanity's story was just beginning.